that area, the zip code 64130, it had the highest crime, murder, and prison rate for the entire state of Missouri.
Okay.
And when I opened up my shop, I was blind to a lot of that because I grew up around the corner. I grew up on 42nd and Bell Fountain. So we talking about 3 blocks down, 3 blocks back is where I grew up at. Opened up my shop on 39th. I was on the inside looking out.
Hey, it's the new church closed. The new church closed. Here it goes. Somebody come look at this. Look at that.
Can you believe that?
I can't believe that he came in church with them clothes on. That don't make no sense. He got his hat on.
No good weather to
We
pick
going straight to hell. Straight to hell.
What's up, everybody? This is Kyren, and welcome back for another episode of the New Church Clothes Podcast. And today is a special day like any other day because I have a very special guest with us. And this time, our guest isn't one of my colleagues, isn't one of my friends. It isn't somebody that grew up in St. James, but we got somebody out in the community making really a big name for himself, but also a big name for Christ and some of the work that he does. And we'll dive deeper into that conversation. But today we have Joey the Barber with us, and I'm excited about this conversation. So, Joey, again, thanks for joining us for a conversation. I'm going to ask you like I ask everybody else, what did you grow up wearing to church? Because this is the New Church Clothes Podcast. What did you grow up wearing to church? What do you wear to church now? And how do you see that, if at all, impacting your relationship with God?
Grew up going to church, so it's kind of crazy because my great-grandpa was actually a minister.
Okay.
A minister, a pastor. He had a church called Second Missionary Baptist Church over on 43rd and Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of grew up in that era where, how you got your Reverend Miles and all them. He was they big homie, for lack of words. You know what I mean? So I've definitely come from an old school way of learning and being introduced to Christ. But I can honestly say, as far back as I can remember, clothes was never really an issue.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Our clothing. Now, don't get me wrong. My mother, LaDonna Adams, she took pride in making sure that we looked good and had that fresh out the bathtub shine. But outside of that, I mean, clothes never really an issue, man. I personally used to like dressing up, so we would wear things that we were comfortable in. Honestly, I don't think clothes even became part of our conversation until years later.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I like that. So now, what you wear to church?
Honestly, now I still come pretty comfortable. A good friend of mine, Sister Bass, her mother, rest in heaven. She used to get on me. I remember a couple times I came to church. I had on boots and jeans, kind of like that. Well, and she was like, "Come here, son. You're not supposed to wear jeans like that." And I mean, she didn't say it as if like you can't come back to church or you gotta leave church. It was just more so one of those things where Joey, I think extremely highly of you, and you having 3 daughters and you being a pillar and being looked up to. Do me a favor, Joey, and help set a tone. It was. I think it was more. That's the way I took it. And when she said that to me, I didn't go home immediately and throw away all my jeans with holes in it. I was just a little bit more conscious about certain clothing. Not that because I don't wear suits to church, and that's not because I feel like I'm being respectful or disrespectful. I'm just not always comfortable wearing a suit. So I dress pretty comfortable, and in most cases, me being a father to 3 daughters and all of us, we usually try to color coordinate to some degree.
Okay.
So so we had that going on, but outside of that though, man, I'm coming comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so before we started recording, you mentioned how now, and this is the same church that you grew up at.
No. Like I said, I grew up Second Missionary Baptist Church.
Okay.
That was my great grandpa. Once he passed, we found home with a church called New Beginnings, Pastor Vicki Henderson.
Okay.
And without a doubt, man, clothing wasn't necessarily like we didn't have a dress code or anything. And then after New Beginnings, I kind of started. I actually wrote my pastor a letter, and I told her because my pastor was a lady pastor, and I know people had their thoughts about women leadership. But for me, at that point in time in my life, I was searching for leadership from a male.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's what God spoke to me into my heart, and I wanted leadership from a male. And I wrote a letter to my pastor to ask for her permission to do so. To, you know what I mean? Because I wanted to go out here and I was on that journey. And you know what I'm saying, with grace and blessing, Joey, I support that. So I started kind of wandering around, visit Harvest Church. I really love Bishop Howe. I visited several other churches, but I found home at Second Baptist off 39th Street because I truly believe in. Not only do I believe in community, I believe in, for me at this point in my life at this season, I believe in community churching. Okay. You know, I believe in really, truly, honestly blooming where I'm planted. You know what I mean? So that's my goal, and that's what I'm trying to do.
So you mentioned, so you left one church because of, I shouldn't say because of, but you wanted male leadership, right? So now that segues me into the No Joy Foundation, right? You left for male leadership or mentorship, rather, and then you turned around and you started a whole nonprofit based around that same principle. Yeah. Talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, without a doubt, man, it was spirit led. Okay. You know what I mean? It was spirit led. No Joy Foundation been in existence now for over 17 years. Okay. You know what I mean? 17 years ago, I was a young man, you know what I mean? So, you know, to have the patience, to have the wantingness and the willingness to go out here to want to make a change. Yeah. You know, at a time where a lot of people would say, you know, they give excuse to that age being a time where you're supposed to be partying, drinking, everything else. I just wanted to do something different, man. Don't get me wrong, like I wasn't no saint, I wasn't perfect. You know, if I'm being quite honest with you, man. I used to be a party promoter. Me and some partners of mine, we threw some of the best parties, you know, and we had some of the best kicks, you know what I mean? Like, I had some really good times, but I remember this one time in particular, it was a group of us, we had a group called MEPA. It stood for Missouri Entertainers and Promoters Association. It was about 10 to 15 of us that made it up. And we was all sitting up at PF Chang's on the plaza. We had a little room in the back, and we all celebrating. And that's when I was like, it was on my heart and my mind real heavy. I was like, yo, look, you know, we throwing these parties, we getting money, we having a good time. I'm like, but all we doing is we celebrating people coming out here spending their money buying bottles, leaving from us drunk, you know what I mean, doing silly stuff. That wasn't fulfilling to me. Okay. I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm like, if we gonna do anything, we can still do that, but let's really do something of some substance. Okay. You know, and then that kind of turned into at that moment, it turned into a crack session. Here come Joey, man, like the old man, here come da-da-da, you know, they do y'all ain't trying to be all deep, you know what I mean? But you know what I'm saying, them being my friends, they heard me. Right. And one thing led to another, man. We ended up doing our first event. It was our first initiative of Turkey Tuesday. It wasn't even called Turkey Tuesday back then. We knew we wanted to do something for Thanksgiving, and we went about it completely illegal. You know, and what I mean by illegal is we didn't have no permits because we didn't even know what those were. You know, what I'm saying, we stood in the middle of Prospect, man, on 72nd and Prospect, in front of my old church, New Beginnings, Pastor Vicky Henderson, and because what she did, she allowed us to use her tax exempt letter. You know, so that was like my first introduction to the nonprofit where she let us use a tax exempt letter to go buy some materials and groceries and stuff. And we stood out in the middle of the street, man, stopping traffic, begging, asking people to help us, and we was trying to collect money and collect turkeys, and we just wanted to make Thanksgiving possible for people. And we did so, man. And the next thing you know, my homie Kevin Winston, one of my best friends, through conversations and jokes, they came up with the name No Joy Foundation, and my homegirl Ronica, she put it all together on paperwork for us, and next thing you know, we 17 years later still you know, doing a whole lot of other stuff, but yeah, that was kind of like our introduction to it, and with that, through a lot of prayer, through a lot of support, even through a lot of prophesying, man, you know what I mean, I knew. And I was reminded that we was on the right path and doing the right thing. You know what I mean? So yeah.
So the No Joy Foundation, You got Turkey Tuesday, but then you have Fresh Cut, Fresh Start. Talk to us about that.
So Fresh Cut, Fresh Start, it was an annual event we did for kids going back to school. When we first started, man, we our focus was working with just young men. You know, it was a chance to minister to young men through haircuts. You know, it was a chance to reach out to mom and dad by way of, you know, saying child, and give them resources that they may need. So whether it be an opportunity for them to get a GED, whether it be an opportunity for them to get a scholarship for their child, to get transportation, whatever the case, we wanted to just provide a full wraparound service to help out young men, because at the time, man, I had the shop on 39th Indiana, and you know, 15 plus years ago, that area, the zip code 64130, it had the highest crime, murder, and prison rate for the entire state of Missouri. Okay. You know, and when I opened up my shop, I was blind to a lot of that because I grew up around the corner. I grew up on 42nd and Bell Fountain. So we talking about 3 blocks down, 3 blocks back is where I grew up at. Opened up my shop on 39th. You know, I was on the inside looking out. Yeah. I didn't see what everybody else was seeing. Joey, why you open up the shop here? You got all this crime. You got all this. I just didn't see it. I saw it as like, I'm like, if I'm able to thrive, I know somebody else can. You know what I mean? So, so with that was really like the core of it. And I'm like, you know, if I'm being all the way real, growing up, I didn't always make all the best decisions. Nor was I perfect. I just didn't get caught on a lot of stuff. Yeah. And I feel like because of that grace, that protection, that mercy that was placed on my life, I feel like I owed it back to my community. Yeah. You know what I mean? I owed it back to my community. I owed it back to all the men who helped raise me and guide me. Because my father was killed when I was 2. Wow. You know what I mean? I'm the youngest of 2 older brothers, so we was 2, 4, and 6. And my father was killed, was taken out of my life, and I knew what that pain was like growing up without a father. I knew what that pain was like wanting to have a male to per se lead and guide and curate, but not having that. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, as I got older and I started looking at things through a different lens, even though the removal of my biological father was a reality, I didn't notice how God was placing so many other father figures in my life. You know what I mean? So that took a level of maturity for me to see, which that's a whole nother conversation. But again, once that light bulb clicked on for me, I was like, okay, now it's my turn to make sure that I'm putting that back into. You know what I mean? I've done enough taking away. I need to start pouring back into. Yeah. You know, and I started doing just that, man. And even before the foundation, I mean, I would go back to my old elementary school, try to work with the youth up there. I would do stuff through the community, do stuff at my mother's salon. But then I just wanted to really do something that could create some change and some impact. And that's why we went ahead and legalized everything and started taking it seriously. You know, so again, that's the long way of saying we got Fresh Cut, Fresh Start. We got our Turkey Tuesday, which that's a focus on Thanksgiving. Right. You know what I mean? Thanksgiving is a time where families come together. Yeah. It's also a time where a lot of depression takes place, the holiday season. You know, that's one of the highest times of the year when you got, depression and loneliness. So our thing was, how can we help families, how can we not only feed them physically, but also feed them spiritually, feed them emotionally? That's good. You know what I mean? So we would do the turkeys, the canned goods, non-perishables, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, every year since we began, we've always worked with different churches that can just, if a person just need a hug, an outreach, a place of refuge, a place of prayer, they can connect with that person, with that group, with that organization. As well as we try to make sure we have health components. So whether it be for whatever a person's going through, we got those options available as well. And then we also, we do a youth summit. You know what I mean? We do a youth summit every year, which the name of that is called Choices, Decisions, Outcome. And every year we have a different tagline. So like a couple years we focused on bullying, we focused on different stuff. So we try to work with our youth as much as possible. And then that's all of our community outreach. Our programmatic structure is focused on entrepreneurial development. You know what I mean? So we've done different kind of programs with that. And now here I am. I'm trying my best to live up to, the mission by way of like a Frosty Frogs, which is a business that we started within our family. I got 3 daughters. They now they're 7, 9, and 13.
Okay.
So this is a chance and opportunity for us as a family to learn more about entrepreneurship, to grow as a family, but at the same time teaching them about how to give back and what's the point of giving back, and just showing true dedication to what you believe in. So. We got a lot of moving parts.
A bunch of them. A bunch of them.
Yeah.
And it sounded like, because I think I heard you just say your mom had a shop too?
Yeah, my mother was a shop owner for over 15-some years. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So that's who taught me a lot about true entrepreneurship and true dedication as well.
Thank you. Thank you. We gonna get back to Joey. He got a lot to unpack here. Yeah. Okay, but we'll be back after this commercial break.
We're doing something new and exciting here at St. James. I get asked a lot of questions about the Bible, about faith, about church history, and so much more. So we're going to take time each week where I answer some of the questions that I'm asked the most. So be on the lookout, your social media page, our social media page, YouTube, and so on, where I'll be answering frequently asked questions.
What's up, family? This is Kyren, and we are back for another check-in.
Hey, it's the new church close. The new church close. Here it goes.
So one of the questions I've been asked several times is, do you have to go to church to really be a Christian, or do you have to go to church in order to make it to heaven?
My son was just like, I love being an acolyte. I love singing This Little Light of Mine. That was my introduction to my faith.
Hey, it's the new church close. The new church close. Here we go.
For a complete list of all the meetings and activities at St. James, look no further than your email box. The St. James e-News is updated each Thursday afternoon. Contact the church office to be added to the mail list.
Okay, so we back, and Joey has already opened up the conversation with a bunch of moving parts, and he's doing the work of you're doing the work of the church, and it's good to see and to even just be in the presence of somebody who takes time to intentionally invest back into a community in which you were a part of. A lot of the times we see people go through whatever it is that they've been through as a child, right? You grew up in a city, and then you're like, I ain't going back there, right? Like, I can do without it, right? And some people, they have it justified, right? But for you kind of turned that around, like, no, like you said, I've had moments where I was graced not to get caught. I was graced not to be a victim, or I was graced not to fall to whatever systematic, areas of oppression that this particular community might have had on you. You spent that narrative, became an entrepreneur, and just, I'm making an inference, a very present dad, right? You just started a business for your daughters, right? Talk us through that, because your mom was an entrepreneur, you were an entrepreneur, and now you started a business intentionally to make way for your daughters to be entrepreneurs too. So talk to us about that, your mindset into going into that, and then tell us about Frosty Frogs as well.
Okay, well, for me, I would like to believe that entrepreneurship was just truly the destiny set out for me. My mother's side of the family and my father's side of the family, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. And it's crazy enough because even on my mother and father's side of the family, they had a lot of businesses and interests around the 18th Divine area, around the 39th Street area, and the 39th Street area is a place where I still kind of reside, where I still do reside, and then the 18th Divine being the area where a lot of my business and community outreach takes place, and it just kind of ironic how sometimes how God works those type of things out, but without a doubt, I'm definitely thankful for the shoulders that I do stand on, but yeah, man, again, entrepreneurship. I love everything about it, but what I will say is that with my job description, I'm a barber.
Yeah.
And I take a lot of pride in being a barber because without a doubt, barbering is what has allowed so many doors in my life to be open.
Yeah.
You know, back in 2019, I ran for 3rd in District City Council. You know, 10 years prior to me doing that, 5 years prior to me doing that, you probably couldn't have paid me. It was no way you probably could have ever convinced me that I would have been running for city council. But again, being a barber, seeing things from a different perspective, being able to be inside on certain conversations and seeing certain actions, it prompted me. You know, it allowed me to really to not only be encouraged to do so, but even when I stepped out on that level of faith, I realized that I had a community of people that was right there in support of me. You know what I mean? So I'm thankful for that. But without a doubt, barbering has allowed me to really just fully operate within entrepreneurship. You know, I tell people all the time, after every head I cut, I'm unemployed. You know, and that's kind of just the reality of what I'm invested into. And then out of nowhere, I got 3 daughters. Yeah. You know, out 3 times, I thought I was gonna have a son at some point. I got 3 daughters. You know, and that's and having 3 daughters truly changed my life. Okay. You know, it truly made me hurry up and quit playing and let's look at things from a man's perspective. Let's look at life from a man's perspective. Let's quit playing around. Let's quit acting silly. You know, and that's what, for me, that's what daughters did to me. But even with having them, like I tell my daughters all the time, you can only eat what you kill. You know what I mean? Let's get out here. Let's you know, I'm not going to be that dad that's just giving you stuff just because. I'm not going to be that dad that's just giving you a car because you turned 16. Let me show you how to work for it. Let me truly show you how to fish. I'm not just, you know, so that's kind of the tempo and the tone, you know, that I like to set within my home, man. And I just wanted to truly just show them a different aspect of life. You know, it's nothing there's nothing in this world that you cannot obtain for whatever you want to do, you can truly do it. Whatever you want to get, you can truly get. And I try to make sure I instill that into my daughters, man. And I like to believe that so far they believe in it. You know, I like that. Yeah, they believe in it.
So you said that you after every hair you cut,
I'm unemployed.
You said, yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, man, it's a cutting hair. It's a legal hustle. Okay. You know, the next customer is not promised. You know, I can have a book full of people tomorrow. If I go home and break my hands right now, I ain't got nothing coming my way. You know what I mean? They gonna be like, Joey, sorry to hear that. You know what I mean? But until you get back, I'm gonna go sit in somebody else's chair. You know what I mean? Vice versa. I can have a list full of people, clients tomorrow. If they all go out here getting wrecks, break their hand, or if they got something more important to do, they cancel. You know what I mean? So, you know, with that being my reality, one of my OGs tell me all the time, he's like, Joey, it's a poor rat that got one hole to run to. You know, and I believe in that as well. You know, like you gotta keep different streams of revenue coming in. But even in the practice and the art of trying to keep different streams of revenue, you want to make sure that you know, kind of got a good grip on it. You know what I'm saying? You want to master one area before you start. And I learned it was a pastor. You ever heard of a pastor called Marvin Jackson? He passed away. You know, so Pastor Marvin Jackson, I used to cut his hair. Pastor Marvin Jackson fired me from cutting his hair, but prior to him firing me, he taught me a very valuable lesson about protecting my stream. And what he was getting at, you know, he was my client. You know, I would be running late to his appointment sometimes, and you know, and Pastor Jackson, he like, Joe, you know, I'm a businessman, because he had several businesses. Joe, I got this, I got that, and I would run late on his hair because he's like, Joe, you running late on my time is pushing back, you know, a lot. So one day, I was running late, coming there, cutting his hair. He had this whole lecture for me about protecting your stream. Joey, your stream is what gives life to all your other, your other avenues. You know what I mean? And you gotta protect that stream, and you gotta. And after he broke all that weight, all this stuff down to me, and gave me this hard lecture, he got up out my chair. He even tipped me. He was like, "This is gonna be my last time getting a haircut." And I'm like, man, what? He said, I can't afford you. Keep making me late. You know what I'm saying? I got to protect my stream, Joey. I love you, but I got to go protect my stream. He never sat back down my chair again. We still remained. We was still super cool. I would still go visit his church. He would support what I had going on. But he was like, I ain't get my haircut.
He's a bishop.
I
right?
believe it
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
I believe, yeah. You know, he had a church. Like when I used to visit his church, it was out there out in Grandview.
Yeah.
Off the high over there by Perkins. You know what I mean? But yeah, he taught me a valuable lesson. You know what I mean? He scolded me with love. You know what I mean? But again, man to younger man, that was what was needed. That was important.
That was a lesson in which he rebuked you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But like you said, he rebuked you in love.
Yep.
Now, as a man as a grown man now, you grew up, and you said that your father was taken away from you at a very young age. How did you internalize or conceptualize taking rebukes from men who, you ain't my daddy, I ain't gotta listen to you? If even you ever had a moment like that or moments like that, it was like, bro, I don't gotta listen to you.
Yeah, I went through a lot of that, man. When my father was taken away from me, my younger years, bro, I was filled with anger and rage. You know, and I say it all the time, that it was scary for me because the rage and the anger that I had inside of me, nobody could really do anything with it because it wasn't nobody's fault per se. You know, I never got to meet the man that killed my father. All I knew was that he was a cop. Wow. So I had this rage and this anger for anybody that was a cop. And I also had this rage and this anger for God. You know, if I'm being honest with you. You know, and the reason why I had this anger with God, because again, I was the youngest of two older brothers. I was the youngest of the majority of all my cousins and stuff, aunties, uncles, of course. And everybody would always have these stories about how Joey looks like his dad, act like his dad, remind them of my dad. And I'm like, you know, the only thing that used to go through my mind is like, well, dang, God, what did I do so wrong in life to you that you thought that removing my father was the best thing for me? You know what I mean? And that's what used to make me have that anger and that rage. And next thing you know, I found myself in closets, you know, cussing God out, using the real words. I found myself wanting to kill myself a couple of times. I found myself wanting to hate people just because I'm fighting everybody in the neighborhood. I'm doing all because I just had this anger and this rage, you know. And it wasn't until I got older, again, like I was saying earlier, it wasn't until I got older, man, and life got a way of making you go through things where God revealed to me several things, you know what I'm saying? But the quickest way I can explain it is that God revealed to me that every man has a destiny, every man has options, every man has choices. Yeah. And without making any of my family members mad, because I'm saying this with all respect and with all love, I believe that my father had options and choices and decisions that he had to make. And I believe that the decisions that he was making led him to his demise. But at the same time, you know, his removal from earth per se, his removal from this world, from this being, you know, it wasn't the end of it. For me, it was how can I say it? Another thing I say all the time is like, you know, growing up in my neighborhood at the time I grew up in, I learned a whole lot about what not to do. Okay. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times people have people around them that show them what to do. I learned a lot about what not to do, what not to become, what not to, you know, and in some cases I think that that's better than knowing what to do, because when you know what not to do, it's hard to make them mistakes now because you know you ain't supposed to. You know, and if you do want to do that, then you just kind of insane. You know, so again, you know, my father being removed from my life. Again, when I got older, that's when I realized, like, man, God took my father, but he blessed me with so many fathers. And I got to really start showing appreciation to that. And I got to really be able to accept that. And I got to see past just, like, what I want to see. Yeah. You know, and then I had some stuff happen with my brother where that was a whole spiritual journey. You know what I mean? Seeing my brother, what he went through, God spoke to me through that. And I knew that God was real. You know what I'm saying? I knew that God was real, man. And when God really started speaking to me, it was around the age, I was around about 15 to 16 is when I really started waking up. You know what I mean? I started really paying attention, like this thing called God is real.
Yeah.
This person called, or this I'm gonna say this thing called God is real. You know, and Joey, you got some choices that you got to make. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew God had a calling on my life.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I would have people prophesying over me. I would have people speaking life into me. I would have people praying for me. And I would start seeing a lot of those things that people talked about, and some of those miracles, they would just happen right in front of me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to keep missing out on this. You know what I mean? So you know, I just really started changing my thought process, changing my attitude, changing my outlook on stuff, and from there, man, God he just kept doing his thing, bro.
Would you say that you are a walking miracle?
Without a doubt, man. I think we all are. You know, so I think the biggest miracle of life itself is just really accepting God. You know, because accepting God let me slow down. Accepting God is one part of it.
Yeah.
You know, understanding what God got for you is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But that biggest struggle that you're gonna do is, you know, what you gonna do when that distraction come your way? What you gonna do when that temptation come your way? What you gonna do when that doubt come your way? When you overcome those things, man, that's when, you know, and then when you start doing it more and more, and you start building up those emotional muscles, when you start building up, you know, saying that spiritual strength and all those other components, man, you know, now you become per se that spiritual bodybuilder. You become per se that spirit. You know what I mean? So you know, that's when, you know, the miracles start really rolling in and everything start clicking, and you know what I mean. So that's, you know, because God still gives us a free will.
He do.
You know what I mean? God can have everything laid out for you right now, but what you gonna do?
What you gonna pick?
You know what I'm saying?
What you gonna choose?
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Man, I've appreciated the conversation, bro. And we are almost out of time, but because I know that there's so much more to dive into, I want y'all to stick around for part 2 of the conversation with Joey the Barber, and we're gonna dive deeper into a little bit more of some of the things that you already spoke to previously, and we'll be right back.
Mom, you did a great job raising 3 men, but no, and I hope I don't offend nobody, but in my opinion, a woman cannot teach a man how to be a man.